today we are going to digest surfactants and kind of give a little comparison and contrast to all of the different floor chemicals that we have. So let's start off here. There are 4 different types of surfactants. There are non-ionic, which have no charge, anionic, which have a positive charge, cationic, which have a negative charge, and this zwitterionic, it goes by a couple different names, which has both a positive and a negative charge associated with them. So if you remember from previous videos, what does a surfactant do? So remember, the head on that is water loving, so it loves to be in your bucket of water, and the tail is water phobic, okay, so hydrophobic, so it does not like the water. What that does is it allows those tails to kind of adhere to the surface of your soil, your dirt and your grime that's on the floor, and it grabs onto it. It reduces that surface tension, and so it removes that soil from the surface because of the surface tension that's being reduced. It grabs onto it and forms something called a micelle or a micelle, and then it's able to kind of grab that soil and bring it back into your mop bucket, or when you rinse it out, it allows it to be removed. Now, why does this actually matter? One of the reasons that this matters is because when we mix our chemicals, the chemical balance in the ratio of water to chemical makes a massive difference on whether or not the soil can be removed properly from your surface, okay? If there's not enough of those, the surfactants, you can't form proper micelles for the amount of dirt that's on the surface, okay? So, some of our chemicals, they say if you have a heavy soil, you're gonna mix it stronger, and if you have a lighter soil, you're gonna mix it lesser, okay? So if you don't have enough of the surfactant, it doesn't form the micelles properly, okay? Now, if you have too much of the surfactant, you're gonna form all the micelles and the micelles that you need to remove the surface or the soil from the surface, but then you're gonna have extra, okay? And that's where that residual chemical ends up staying on the surface of your floor because it didn't actually get to work properly, and there was too much of it to form the micelles, and then you were not able to remove that up from the surface. So then we get something called buildup. So it's important to understand how these work so that when you're mixing your chemicals, you mix them properly so you can clean your floors properly. Now, a little bit of that is trial and error in the sense of, okay, what is really dirty, what is not dirty, and you're gonna really have to pay attention to your floors when you do this so that you mix your chemicals properly. The other thing to know about why we have multiple different chemicals is that the water-loving heads actually have different charges, okay? So everything in the planet is made up of atoms, and atoms have a charge, negative charge or a positive charge, okay? And so our chemicals and our surfactants also have a charge. So the different chemicals have different ingredients for different purposes, okay? So non-ionic is the vast majority of what we have, and a lot of your cleaning products are made with non-ionic, and that's because they have no charge in the head, and it gives that the bang for your buck, kind of the biggest cleaning ability, and so that is why most of our chemicals for cleaning are going to have that, okay? Let's walk through them one at a time and talk about the different properties of each. Okay, starting with Nutririnse, it is a non-ionic charge, which means it has no charge, which makes it fairly neutral for cleaning. But the difference with Nutririnse is it has pH adjusters to account for the acidity levels on the floors. That's why we use it to balance out salt during the winter time, okay? It also has a defoamer. So non-ionic surfactants tend to foam up less already, but some of them foam more, okay? And so this defoamer helps it to not be a foamy product when you put it on the floors, and then it neutralizes acids and accounts for the pH levels that are there. Assurance is also a non-ionic surfactant. The difference with that one is it contains different builders. And builders are products or chemicals that go in and they break up the oils and the fats into tiny little globules before the surfactant surrounds it into these micelles. And so that's why Assurance is a good floor cleaner in areas where there's probably some oil and grease buildup because it's going to break that up better than a lot of other floor chemicals. Robusto is a very basic chemical. It's also non-ionic. but it has chelating agents. And if you remember from previous videos, the chelating agents bring up or kind of pick up your metal ions, your metallic ions that other chemicals might not. That's what the chelating agents do. The big thing about Robusto that we really like is it smells good and it leaves a nice fragrance for a while. Super Shine-All is our only anionic chemical, and that one works really good to break up soils on surfaces, but it is not good at breaking up oils unless it has an emulsifier, which this does not. So it's going to be very good at cleaning the surface, but if your surface is at all oily, Super Shine-All is not going to be the product for you. The other thing to remember with this is Super Shine-All gets quite foamy. So if we're using it in a floor scrubber, we want to be very aware of the temperature of our water so that we are not putting a lot of extra foam on the surface of the floor that we're trying to clean and suck up, because then we run into issues with leaving residue on the surface. It also has a pH adjuster and it has chelating agents. So we're removing the metal ions from the floor with this chemical. Top Clean is one of the only chemicals that is only for floors. Super Shine-All probably as well, but Top Clean is your most basic non-ionic chemical that we have out there. It is literally just your basic floor cleaner. It also does contain some chelating agents, so it's kind of our all-around good floor cleaner that we would use in almost all instances until we run into a situation where there might be residue on the surface or something might not be cutting it. But otherwise, Top Clean is probably our go-to. Rejuvenol is our chemical that has antimicrobial side effects. So it's also a non-ionic surfactant. It does have chelating agents and pH adjusters, but it has that microbacterial, the microbial parts. So it is an antibacterial disinfectant. Remember, we have to follow the instructions that we've learned about in Rejuvenol in order to qualify as disinfecting, but it is a really good all-around cleaner if we have buildup and we kind of just need to revive things. If we're in a bathroom that has been really messed up and we kind of just need to go in and do a good deep clean, Rejuvenol is our chemical for that. Lastly, we have Suprox. Suprox is also non-ionic, but it contains an oxidizer. So this is a hydrogen peroxide chemical that has many other uses outside of the floors, but it is a really good option to kind of reset things once in a while, okay? It's a very basic cleaner, but it will brighten whites. I'm gonna do a short video on it at some point and kind of show you the positives that it has in other areas, but it is a good brightener. So you're probably thinking, okay, almost all of them are non-ionic surfactants. We can pretty much use any one of them for anything, okay? That's not true. For the most part, every one of the chemicals that are non-ionic surfactant are a different exact chemical. And the reason that that is important is all of them are going to function just a little bit differently, and all of them need to be mixed a little bit differently, okay? There's something called hydrogen bonding. And so in order for the micelles to form properly, the temperature of the water makes a big difference. Every one of those surfactants has a different temperature point at which the surfactant works best. So that decreases, the effectiveness of your surfactant decreases as the temperature of your water increases. Now, this does not mean you always use cold water. What you need to watch for is something called the cloud point, okay? So if you get really hot water and you pour your chemical in and it gets all cloudy, you have essentially deactivated your surfactant, because the temperature at which you are going to pick up and properly form your micelles is going to be ruined, essentially, okay? So we want to stick with a cooler, more room temperature water. Some surfactants can work better at a higher temperature, but most of them are going to work better at a cooler temperature. Now, I know that goes against everything that we ever learned as kids. We always cleaned with hot water, right? But chemistry has come so far that it makes a huge difference. So we want to pay attention to our product, we want to pay attention to our bucket, and make sure we're mixing everything according to the directions. So why does this all matter to the average person? It matters because we have to understand the different chemical makeups of each of our chemicals so we can make the best decisions for our locations, okay? if we walk into a new location and their floors are a mess, we have to get an understanding of what are we going to try first. Okay, we know that Assurance is a good degreaser. We probably want to try that first, and then once we get it nice and clean, we can just bump to top clean for a long time until we start to see maybe some residue, and then we come back in with Rejuvenol or the Assurance again and kind of buff it back up and then go back to the top clean. We don't know when we've walked into a new location how long that dirt's been there. We don't know how often they changed their water or how much chemical they used. Even at our locations we've been at for a long time, if you use the same thing over and over and over for 2 years, chances are good you're going to get some buildup. Okay? And so every once in a while, we need to jump in with maybe the Suprax or maybe the Robusto and just try a different chemical to kind of reset the situation. All right? So a lot of this you can work through with the office, but I want you to have the information all in one place. So hopefully you can make some informed decisions for yourself and for your location and kind of look at your floors a little different and think, okay, what do I actually need to use to get the best results? Nothing should be impossible to clean unless they've waxed over dirt. Every one of our locations should have beautiful floors. So take the time, look into it, see what you can figure out.